Hi guys, welcome back. You're listening to Radio Taiwan International, and this is Geek Out. I'm your host, Michelle Chang. What's your cup of tea? What tickles your fancy or what floats your boat? Join us as we share passions from people in Taiwan and around the world. Yeah, I don't even know what I'm doing today.
Yeah, sorry, did I mess it up? No, we keep it natural.
We keep this.
We keep it natural.
We keep the mistakes.
For you.
Yeah. So you guys at home, you know we're being on, we're real.
Yeah, we're real. Oh, we're here.
So in the studio today we have, one of the other FM ladies, one of my crew, Sharon Lin.
Hey.
Yeah. So what are we geeking out about today?
What are we geeking out about today? So we're talking about Shadow and Bone.
Shadow and Bone.
It's, I think one of my favorite shows of late, and probably, top three these recent years, and probably it's going to be like one of the... Wow, I cannot talk. Anyway, this show is amazing.
Okay, and so it's a TV show available on what platforms?
Netflix. So season 1 premiered a couple of years ago, and season 2 just came out in March. So Shadow and Bone is an adaptation. Okay. So there are books. So it's based on author Lee Bardugo's book, Shadow and Bone. It's a trilogy. They were first published in 2012, I believe. Yep. And then in the show, it's a combination of 2 sets of books. So the Shadow and Bone trilogy and the Six of Crows duology. And so I think the key information to know is this show is adapted from a source material that was written in text.
Nice.
Because I know readers and show...
There's always the argument of, the people who read books will never accept the adaptation of the book. And then there's people who are just happy to see that they've brought it to life.
Yeah, I think give and take. So as someone who majored in English literature, I feel like, it's very obvious that text and visuals, they're completely different.
Of course, mediums. Right?
Yeah. So, like book readers, just calm down. but also, I feel like this show, at least from my point of view, is super well
adapted.
Yes. Okay. Yeah, super well adapted. I can go on and just ask me some questions and we touch on things.
So what genre would you put this show into?
So the books are under YA, young adult fiction. So this is sci-fi. So basically, for listeners, a clearer picture for you is, say, if you are a fan of shows or works like Harry Potter, The Lord of the Rings, The Witcher, and
Game of Thrones.
Yeah, Game of Thrones, and throwing some spices from period dramas. Shadow and Bone is under that realm. Okay. So it's sci-fi fantasy. Yeah. Fantasy, and we're dealing with people with superpowers, and also, people with superpowers. And one of my favorite things about this show is how each character and the story itself is really a story about hope and about dealing with trauma and healing, and how each person, honestly, their characters, but they're really, really well fleshed out and multidimensional.
That's actually one requirement I always have for shows is I can't actually watch a show more than an episode unless I can really connect to the characters in it.
Yeah, I know. And you mentioned it in other episodes of Geek Out. Yeah. Same for me. Yeah.
Right. So as long as, props to people who can really flesh out and form a connection with the audience. Because obviously these are made up people. Yeah. And it's really hard for a lot of the time, especially in fantasy or just, it's fantastical. Yeah. So for you to be able to form that connection with your viewers,
and I think this is a really telling point of a writer or creator, showrunner, how much they observed from real human life, because many of the characters, honestly, all in season 2, especially, all of the characters that you thought were side characters, other than if you read all the books, you would know, but they're so fleshed out, and each person, what pieces of jewelry, for example, they just couldn't part with, or why they chose not to do things a certain way, and what's because of they've been through something in their childhood. Anyway, I think let's get to some characters.
Right. So actually, before we do that, I kind of want to talk about, so the genre of fantasy in general, as you've mentioned, there's everything from Harry Potter, which is technically set in modern day, but it is a magical world, right?
Yeah, yes.
And all the way through to, say, Game of Thrones, I think most people are familiar with. Yeah. It's quote unquote medieval.
Kind of.
So, something, along those
Even
lines.
Though I haven't watched all of it, but of course I know like the big, plots.
So it is medieval. So we don't have like electricity and stuff, right?
No, we don't have iPhones.
These are obviously all make-believe worlds, but So can you describe Shadow and Bone for our listeners who've never seen it? And because it tends to be less promoted, I'm gonna say,
which I'm so surprised.
Many series, right?
Yeah, which honestly I'm so surprised. And again, I think I mentioned this on different shows on RTI that this Shadow and Bone is, I think, like us as fans of fantasy our whole life. Shadow and Bone is honestly the first ever big production by Netflix and also adapted from very celebrated books by Lee Bardugo, starring a lead character of East Asian descent. And she's also Jessie May Lee is the actor, amazing actor, who's also queer and neurodivergent. And and just I remember when the first episode of season 1 premiered, it really moved me to tears. I was watching it. I think it was when I was still in the States. That's when season 1 premiered, and I really cried because, as a fan of fantasy my whole life.
And you had read the books first.
Yeah, I read Shadow and Bone, the first book, and it was so fun. It was also, I'm a bad reader, so I read very slow. Anyway, I managed to finish the book before season 1 premiered, and episode 1 really moved me to tears. Seeing someone that, really looks like me in a major fantasy series as the lead character, and who has full agency, smart and vulnerable, empathetic, has her own desires, and she is there to serve her own story instead of anyone else. A love interest or something, all those kind of cliche.
I gotta say that representation in mainstream media is a big thing that's just now, within the past 5 years?
It's super important.
It's very important. And
I think, that's when I felt the magic of how important it is for someone, while we there are more Asian characters, fortunately, these years, but I finally felt the magic of why representation is really, really important.
Yes, absolutely.
So
I'm glad that you felt that. I need to watch this show.
You really should. I mean, the whole cast. I know this sounds very cliche, but
I did watch the like a season 1 recap. There weren't, like you said, there weren't like terrible spoilers in it.
Yeah, no spoilers. Spoiler free. Don't worry.
But I do have to say, everyone is really beautiful.
I know, and the costumes, and also everything ties so well with. I can go on and on. We can record like I don't know 4 episodes.
It's fair production quality.
Really good,
which is unusual for Netflix at that time. They would sometimes not put that much money into these kinds of projects, right?
Yeah.
So let's flesh out this show a little bit more for people who have never seen it.
Yeah, but you should totally watch it after the show. Yeah.
But obviously Sharon is going to be careful not to spoil anything.
Don't worry, spoiler free. Yeah, spoiler free.
Right. So it's like what I got from the recap trailer is that it's definitely fantasy, and it's set looking at their clothing and environments and stuff. There's maybe ships from like the mid 19th century.
Yeah. Kind of mid 19th century. Lee Bardugo nicknamed it Tsar punk. So think about a picture like a mid 19th century Russia, maybe.
Right, clothing.
East Europe, Eastern Europe. It was, most of the scenes were shot in Budapest in Hungary.
Cool.
So, yeah.
I actually shot there.
Yeah.
Oh, that's fantastic. I love it when they shoot on location.
Most of the things were shot on location. Yeah.
Actually using very, what is the word? Authentic places rather than building a set.
Yeah.
Because you're going to need a lot of budget in order to build a set and make it look as if it really existed. So, right. So it's kind of, what do you call it? Tsar punk?
Tsar punk. It's the author and also the showrunner. They nicknamed this era. And so it has this touch of period dramas, which I do love.
Right.
So the costume design is really exquisite, and this is another thing that I love about this so much. So this cast and also the characters, they're really, really diverse, of all genders and different sexual orientation, different races, and also the costumes also complement this. They never made women characters felt as if they're made for the male gaze. No, they actually portrayed all the characters as very strong.
So you're telling me that I'm not going to see a single piece of boobs armor in this?
No, actually, no.
Wow.
So this is, in comparison to, say, Game of Thrones, Shadow and Bone is very family friendly.
Okay.
So I don't know. Some of my friends, they nickname Game of Thrones like it's about swords and boobs, but Shadow and Bone is not
family
that
friendly. Okay,
good. More family friendly. There is some gore, but
so you would rate it GPG, PG-13.
I think on Netflix is age 16.
Okay, so
because I think there are some killing scenes. Don't worry, there won't be any spoilers, but they depict wars and fights, and
so you can't like get away from people dying. But just looking. Watching this recap, I did also see a lot of, not a lot, but some CGI monsters and things.
Yes.
And that, being a fan of, say, The Witcher, and other TV shows that have these fantasy creatures. I'm currently watching The Mandalorian, so I appreciate the quality of the CGI of the monsters in that show.
Yeah, same.
Just from the quick cap.
Yeah, because first, when you read the books, you have your own imagination, and of course, you're a little bit afraid that how it's a visual representation. Yeah. It's actually really good. Yeah. And just as a nerd, I just love how. Okay, how to talk about this spoiler free? Okay, so I think that. For me, one of the core of Shadow and Bone, the show, is really about trauma and healing.
Yeah.
And for example, the monsters you mentioned, how and why did they come about?
Oh, so they actually go into the origin.
Yes. And was there someone who was quote unquote responsible for this, and why?
Oh, very
What
cool.
happened to this person? And also, honestly, I really felt like this work, I noticed this work because first, it was because of Ben Barnes, my man, one of my favorite actors, amazing human being.
Ben Barnes, please visit Taiwan, be on our show.
And I have to interview. Honestly, if anyone's fighting, no, I will be the host who gets to interview Ben Barnes.
I want to sit in the room.
Yes. We're just like fantasy. Okay, anyway, so it was because of him, but this show and the book series really came at a time when I was really going through my own shadowfall in life. The shadowfall is a main part of the plot in Shadow and Bone. So this work really helped me so much. And also,
so let's talk about that though. The shadowfold, okay, is one of the main themes of the book.
Yeah. So the story is set in a universe they call it the Grishaverse, and in this fictional country called Ravka, there is a rip on the map, the fold, so it separates the country in two.
Okay.
And so anyway, we're gonna skip why the fold
obviously,
was there. Yeah, obviously.
But spoilers.
Yeah, so many people want to get rid of it. Some people don't want to because they actually benefit from having this barrier between two areas of the country. So yeah, and the first ever line Alina, the main character played by Jessie Lee, said is, "When I was young, I was afraid of the dark. When I got older, I learned that darkness is a place and it's full of monsters." And then it echoes through the line where she said, everybody wants to get rid of it. Well, most people. But she realized that the only way out is through. And it echoes what I was going through so much, because I feel like it's not too uncommon that when we're faced with hardships, we always wanted to find another way around.
Right. Can I offer you? Can I ask you a personal question?
Yes.
Have you actually been through like a depression?
I don't know. I don't think it's depression. Probably not clinically diagnosed, but I was going through a really hard time a couple of years ago, related to my family.
Yeah.
And it didn't, until I talked to more therapists, I realized that things were happening in my family were not quote unquote normal. It's really bad for young kids, and I grew up in that dynamic, and I didn't realize I was unnormal until I talked to professionals and talked to more people.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you've learned that, and I'm sorry you went through it.
Thank you.
But anybody who's actually been through rough times, I think has learned that there's no way to just like magically stop something, these kinds of dark situations. The only way to get over it is to go through it.
Yes. And this echoes so well with the story in Shadow and Bone, because the main characters, they build friendships with the most, you can say, unlikely encounters. And I think, okay, this is not a spoiler, but each character, just observe closely, each of them, they have all been through or are still going through something that is very dark and very, it's a huge struggle. And some of them, they have to hide it for the sake of protecting themselves or someone they love. But
I love it when they flesh out the characters, and each of them is actually going through it.
And in season 2, especially with characters Jenya and David, wow, that was just powerful stuff.
Right. Yeah. It's I guess it's all the rage right now to actually flesh out villains, especially people who might be behaving in a quote unquote evil way.
Yes.
But they, in the show or movie, they will actually go into the background of this person and then show that maybe that they're just going through it,
which is just like every person we meet in life. So in Shadow and Bone, literally they're dealing with light and dark, and of course we're dealing with superpowers, but also it's really again, like one of my favorite things to describe fantasy is they use seemingly otherworldly things to talk about very human struggles. And for example, while you can say while the main villain, played by Ben Barnes, one of the reasons why I really appreciate Ben Barnes' performance is in his approach. He really wants to find out, say he's playing the villain, not a spoiler, but you know this. He really wants to dig deep and find out, okay, if he's like this vicious psychopath killer, what makes him vulnerable,
right?
And what are his desires, and in all of his darkness, where do you find his light potentially,
right?
And this is something that is not only really fascinating, but I think, at least for me, to enjoy a piece of work, that when I find it good, this is always in the picture.
Yeah, the characters need to be multifaceted.
Anyway, it's Sharon Bone, just chef's kiss. I don't know how much sense I'm making right now.
No,
it's just really good.
You're definitely making sense. You love this show, and what we're trying to do is to get more people to watch it. So Netflix keeps making it.
And you know what? Inej Gaffa, one of the crows in the book and the show, is my main inspiration for Luna, my Dungeons and Dragons character.
Guys, if you don't know, we've played several sessions of Dungeons and Dragons here with the people at RTI, and it's been we all rolled up characters, and Sharon plays
Luna, the light, and I took major inspiration from Inej from Shadow and Bone.
Bard, half elf bard, right?
No, half elf sorcerer.
That's right, sorcerer. And basically, you took the character, dude. First of all, we all do this, okay? When we play Dungeons and Dragons D&D, we take inspiration from pop culture or whatever. We take that character idea and then we customize it to our own ends.
Yeah,
and absolutely,
it's so fun. Yeah, and Inej is another character that she's been through so much, and she was forced into like indentured slavery, and she was forced to work in a brothel, very, very dark things, but she still turned out to be such an empathetic adult.
Right.
Well, of course, it's said in the show, but just this arc of you've been through so much darkness, but you still managed to find a light in you, and she's one of the most empathetic characters in the show, and it's just really, really powerful stuff. And yeah, it inspired me a lot. And she looks so, wait, are we allowed to say, no, she looks so cool. Can I say badass? Can I?
Well, I mean, if we can't, we'll edit it out. But she looks so cool.
Yeah, she looks just amazing. And just, she has this very cool outfit on. And, her weapons of choice is knives.
Oh, and, daggers, I love them.
Each of her knives have names.
Do they have stories too?
Yes.
And,
yeah.
I have a character. My very first one that I ever created to play in my very good friend Eric Gao. Shout out to you. Thank you for introducing me to the nerd world. Was a dagger collector. So cool. I get that. I get that. They all have stories.
Yeah, I kind of like that. So again, we're not promoting violence, but I think one thing about Inej is it's very important for her to, I don't know, say if we put it in a modern world, she is definitely not a sniper because you kill without knowing who you are killing.
Yes.
But for Inej, it's really important to know whether it's worth it, whether she should do it.
So I think it was from the movie The Professional, where they explain that, killing with a knife is very intimate. You have to get up close and personal with the person whom you are targeting.
Yeah.
So, not promoting violence, you guys.
No. But just the character building.
Fantasy world,
how
character
each
building.
detail echoes who this person / character is. This Shadow and Bone, chef's kiss. I don't know. Again, I feel like I'm just blabbly. This show is so good.
All right.
The soundtrack is good.
Okay, so in order to convince people to go to Netflix and try this show out, I would say that the main theme of this is that that all these people are going through it.
Yeah.
All of them are multifaceted and have a lot of history.
Yeah, and honestly, I really, really feel that anyone can find someone or multiple characters that they really identify with. And also it's a show about healing, about trauma, about growing, and about figuring out who you are, who you want to be. And again, the main character, Elena Starkov, is really just, I just love it. It's amazing. I don't know what else to say.
Well, I mean, it's a It sounds fantastic. And just based on the trailer, I think I have to go watch it.
It's super cool. And another testament is I've rewatched season 1 for at least 10 times. Yeah. I remember every line, y'all.
That's a mark of a good TV show as we do that, right? So guys, what's your cup of tea? What tickles your fans here? What floats your boat? Join us as we share passions from people in Taiwan and around the world. Thanks, Sharon, for coming in.
Thank you. Yes. I can go on and on, but
on and on. Well, we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.